I'm not sure, but I think a fair number of things at these auctions are bought by good dealers all across the country. But I was told at this auction, the prices were going so high that a lot of the well-known dealers were pulling back. Because if they can't, they're in business. If they can't, if you're going to put $98,000 as they did for that Maurice, and you may have to hold it, say, for 2 years before you resell.
Yeah.
That $98,000 is a lot of interest going down the drain, and they have to make a profit.
That's right. Yeah.
And I heard they just all pulled back out of this.
You were saying when the camera wasn't going something about people asking you for advice on what kind of paintings they should buy.
I try to keep out of that. I think people should buy what they like. I'll try to steer them away from what I call junk, but there's a fair amount of this going on now of buying names. You know, some collector may have, we'll say, 6 of the group of 7, and he wants to complete it. Well, he buys a poor one, then he can say he's got the 7. Some of them are smart. They'll buy that 7th and then later trade it and get a better one. But I don't like that. And yet, if they trade it in and up their collection, I think that's fine. But I had a call just before you came in. One of the dealers in Toronto, he's got a so-called Thompson. I've looked at those things till I'm nearly blind trying to help. I never knew Thompson, and I have to almost guess at some because they have no back history. If I can get the history of who bought it, I may know that collector or where it came from. A lot of them haven't got it. But fortunately, this one had been shown to Thoreau MacDonald. That's Jim MacDonald's son. And Thoreau said that he remembered the house that was in, the people who owned it way back. That's this dealer, you don't need any better recommendation than that. But the problem with some borderline things, it takes an awful lot of time. I may be on the fence. Perhaps it is and perhaps it isn't. And then I have to get, if it's an important thing, get the OPP. They've got the facilities to put a man on that and trace it back for me.
Really? Yeah.
And then if I get back to somebody I've known or had a good collection or something like that.
Getting back to your own work for a minute, what do you enjoy doing the most?
In my work?
Yeah.
Painting, or sketching. Outside. I enjoy painting a canvas, but the thing I suppose a canvas may take you anywhere a week, 2 weeks, but an outdoor oil sketch, anything over 3 hours and you've had it. You'll just muck it up. I like about 2.5 hours because the sun moves, it changes. You may start on a dull day, half through the sun comes out, and if you don't remember just what's there. But I think it's the gamble on sketching, and partly if you like the North Country, as I do, it's part being up there and part the sketching. I am just as keen on sketching now as I was when I was 20 years old.
On being outdoors and up in the
I
north?
like the outdoors. I've often said that if I'm driving up north, I had my eyes shut, I can tell you when you come to Muskoka. You don't need to be told. I can smell it, and I just know I'm there. And it's much easier to get up there now.
Sure. Right.
When we first started going up, pretty grim. There were no roads. You had to go on a train and camp. Now you can get pretty good accommodation almost anywhere, particularly in the fall. after Labor Day, people have come home, and if we go to somebody's cottage, make ourselves known and want to rent it, almost anybody will, because they know that we're past where we're going to have a wild party and wreck the place.
Yeah.
And we've had no trouble at all.
One more thing I was going to ask you, and I don't think the camera was running when we were talking about it before, is the amount of attention that's being paid to your work and the work of the Group of Seven over the past few years and the kind of prices they're bringing now. How does that make you feel?
Good. I'm glad. Because, well, I suppose I could say something that would bring it right up to date. Is when Lismer was living, well, not right up until he died. He had a few good years there, but he used to say, I have the biggest collection of Lismers in the world. And we knew there were good things, but they just weren't, there was no demand. Now, try to get some of these things.
Yeah.
That's partly why the cost is going up.
Yeah.
Carmichael's particularly.
Yeah.
Frank, he produced a lot in the way of sketching, but then back in the, getting out of the 40s, he got discouraged with, he still loved painting, but he said, I'm just piling these things up, and what am I going to do with them? And he went into other things. He made silver, furniture, and batiks, all kinds of things.
Yeah, we're aware of that.
And when poor Frank died, I went out to his studio a couple of nights after to help sort things out for his wife, and here was a big canvas just half finished. He just started back.
Is that right?
And now if you can get a Carmichael, it's like gold.
Yeah.
His are the most difficult of any of the group to get. And for years,
You couldn't sell them?
nothing. But I'm glad, and people ask me why I spend so much time with the OPP, working on this fraud business. I said, well, if it hadn't been for them, I wouldn't be, as a painter, where I am today. And I owe so much to them that the least I can do is try to protect their good name.
Sure.
I don't want to see a lot of fake things of theirs getting out.
Yeah.
And I think we've got it stopped pretty well, but there's money in it,
Oh, sure. Yeah.
and that'll
With the
that'll
prices
keep
of what they're
them
today.
doing it. I know one case we had, speaking of money, there was one gallery which is no longer in existence. It was we put the chap in jail, but he was hiring a poor old chap here, a broken down artist, and paying him $5 each to make copies.
Yeah.
And they were being auctioned at $700 and $800 in those days. And I just used this as an example. People say, why do people do this? It's money. As long as there's money in it, they'll keep doing it. But we've kept, the OPP pretty well leave it to me now to watch. And if I see anything really bad and I can't do anything about it, they step in.
I guess really you're in a position to watch over the Group of Seven heritage.
Yeah, that's really it.
Your
Yeah.
flame to keep, as it were.
And the OPP gave me a badge. I have it gives me some authority. Like if you had a gallery and I'd heard there'd been some poor things in there, I can go in, and if I start to question you and you know, get a little...
You've been painting for a long time, and having reached your 80th birthday, I think the country would probably be interested to know if you're going to continue painting, what we can expect to have you doing.
Well, I think you'll know I'm going to continue painting, because 2 or 3 days here when it was raining and I really didn't have time to spend time on new canvas. I went down the basement and made 200 sketch panels, 12-15s, and that'll keep me busy for a while. And I've got 4 canvases laid out to work on, Lee. I have played golf, but I'm not a golfer. But I think it's sketching and painting, or particularly sketching, is something like that. It's a gamble. No matter what experience you've had, you may go out, pick a beautiful subject, and make the worst clinker out of it. And I think this is what spurs you on. You think, oh,
Yeah.
tomorrow I'll get something better.
They used to say in television, they do that you're only as good as your last program. Is it the same for an artist? Do you feel that at any rate that what your most recent work is what you're really all about?
Yeah, I've known a lot of artists in my time, and there are a lot of artists that, most of them gone now, and good ones. They always felt that anything they did, say 25 years ago, they didn't want to look at it. And then, say, in my retrospective show in Windsor, there's some things in there I did in the early 20s, and I wish I could do them today. I'd be proud of them.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's because at that time, particularly in Canada, you painted for the sheer fun of it. There were no sales. And you painted to get in exhibitions, and there was a sort of a carefree attitude. And I think as you get older, you get a little more analytical, a little more careful.
Yeah.
I looked at some of those things I haven't seen for 40 years. I just wish I could do it now.
Is it still fun though? Do you still paint for the fun of it?
Yeah. If I went up to paint and got halfway through a thing and found this was work, I'd quit right there. I wouldn't do another thing. I just enjoy. It's a challenge.
Yeah.
I know a good example of that is a few years ago when they built that new wing on the Parliament building, over towards Bay Street. 3 of us were commissioned to paint a mural, and they're in the lower hall. They're spaced out, and I think they're about 8 by 11'6". They're not big. And I got the canvas, stretched it, this great big sheet of white, and the first day, got a piece of charcoal and just start to draw. And he stepped back and think, hey, what's this going to be when I'm finished with it? It looks so silly, those 2 or 3 little lines of charcoal. It's the challenge of what can you make out of that piece of white canvas. I work quite different now than I did in the early days, though. When I was working with the group of 7 under their wing, and practically everybody in those days went out and made spot sketches and then actually painted that up into a big size with better painting and perhaps changed the color, but very little change in it. I haven't done that for years. I like to get the spot sketch, keep it a while, and then just use it as a note to make something. There's more fun in doing that.
Yeah. This is what you do when you go on your trips into the lakes, that sort of thing, the procedure that you follow?
You make 12, 15 oil sketches, finished. You don't touch them when you come home. And then if you come home from the trip, and there's 4 or 5 of those that have promised to work on, you may go back and make a number of pencil drawings for detail and that sort of thing. But I don't work.
No,
I don't work from the. No longer, just enlarge the sketch.
Yeah. You have seen a great deal of country that 99.999% of the Canadian public has never seen and probably never will see. What does that? This is a silly question to ask, or not the way to ask it, perhaps. But a lot of complaining in the country about the way things are and about the state the country is in. But it seems to me your perspective of it must be considerably different. Does it make you think about about the way Canadians are viewing themselves now.
Well, yeah, I can judge more by the way they view art than I can other things. But when I first started, say in the 20s, anything you did in the way of painting, it was not the accepted view of what a painting should be. You got plenty of criticism for it now. But now, I suppose there's only, I can only say it in a sort of a slang expression, that anything goes. And there won't be any criticism much. And that is a change in the attitude of the public. It was pretty, I know before I got in the group, I was so much younger. In fact, when I met the group, I'd never exhibited anything. And during the time the group were watching me, hoping that I'd say to come through, the Academy were also doing it. And the Academy in those days was pretty rigid in their ideas. And I can still remember one day down at the Arts and Letters Club after lunch, 2 or 3 of the old academicians, men I respected, and like took me aside and just said, you know, we're considering you for the Academy, but in so many words, you're keeping bad company.
Really?
That attitude's gone. The Academy's changed, all these things have changed. But I'm closer to the art world than I really am, you know, to the...
There's some Canadian paintings just yesterday were bringing record prices over at that auction at the Park Plaza.
Yeah,
Does it surprise you that the degree to which these...
It's an awful surprise to me. I've never been conscious of what might